Saludos, coleguitas de Vinilandia. Acabo de pasar un rato magnífico hablando con Jade de AFI acerca de su último disco, Silver Blitz de Black Sun. Hemos tocado temas como qué supone reinventar AFI, las influencias que les han llevado a dónde están y cómo se defiende este nuevo material ante la audiencia. Soy de la opinión de que AFI está por encima del bien y el mal y puede hacer absolutamente lo que le dé la gana. Así que, por favor, revisad vuestras opciones ahí abajo porque la entrevista está en inglés y si no me estáis escuchando es porque tenéis que cambiar algunos temas de pistas de audio. Así que os dejo con este material de Vinilandia extra. Well, Jade, it's such an honor having you here. My name is Curro, and I host a show called Vinilandia, where we talk about life through the music that shaped us. So, first of all, thank you for taking the time to chat with me today. Thank you very much. Well, let's talk about Silver Breeds the Black Sun. Um, First question will be about influences. So, what were you guys listening while you were shaping this album?
I mean, a lot of the stuff we had been listening to since we were kids, like growing up in the 80s, listening to a lot of post-punk and death rock, stuff like that. I mean, obviously you could probably hear Sisters of Mercy in there. You could hear Bauhaus, Susan the Banshees, Magazine, Red Lorry, Yellow Lorry, PIL, The Cure. So all of that early 80s, mainly British, but also stuff like Christian Death that was happening in Los Angeles. And there was like a death rock scene in Los Angeles that was inspired by those post-punk bands too. So, I mean, those were big things. And, you'll hear some neo folk in there, Death in June and Rome and Of the One and the Moon and stuff like that on some of the acoustic songs. And probably a little bit of Love and Rockets.
Okay, okay. Were you all in the same mood as a band when you worked towards this new sound?
Yeah, it kind of started with Davey and I sitting down in this room I'm in right now and just kind of, seeing what would come out. And the first thing that came out was Behind the Clock. And so it was like, that was not a song that sounded like anything we had ever done before. So it was kind of like, whoa, okay, this is interesting. Davey singing's like real baritone, low voice. And we just let it take us from there. And the second song he wrote was the first song on the record, Bird of Prey, which is an acoustic song. And so right off the bat, it was these real disparate, different things. And that was kind of how we started on the whole journey of making this record.
So you're saying that just one song sparked all this new sound, right?
Sort of. I mean, there isn't another song on the record that sounds like Behind the Clock. So it kind of wasn't like we wrote that song and we're like, okay, let's write 9 more songs that sound like this. But it put us in the mind of like, it had a little bit of this Andrew Eldritch from Sisters of Mercy sound to it. And so the post-punk influences started to kind of take us on this journey of exploring, different elements of that.
Okay, okay. And what was the hardest part about reinventing AFI again?
Really, that part's the easiest because sounding different on each record isn't some huge chore and some big difficulty where it's like, oh man, we got to reinvent ourselves. This is going to be so hard. What do we do? That is like really comes naturally. And it actually probably be harder to sound like the last record than it is to sound like something new.
Okay, okay, that's interesting. So, would you say there is a main emotion that drive this record the most?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, I mean, it's a dark record, like which is not necessarily anything that's foreign to AFI, obviously, but there's some despair, there's some sort of disgust looking at the world, looking at human nature, looking at what's happening around us and what has been happening around us our whole lives. And so, that kind of thing, it definitely permeates and pervades this record.
Okay, so how about is there any non-musical inspiration behind the mood of the album?
Um, Lyrically, certainly, like I said, looking at this dystopian place that we've come to as a people and looking at people giving free rein to the darkest parts of their nature. I mean, that's kind of hard for all of us to live with. And so that's a big aspect of it. Musically, I'm inspired by just the idea of making things beautiful, uplifting, dark, maybe sometimes a little disturbing, a little dissonant. Like all these things aren't always primarily musical ideas, but this is how they gets expressed when I sit down to write.
Okay. How about the bands that you were influenced in the early AFI? Do you still listen to them?
Yeah, I mean, really, some of these bands that I listed earlier, those were still influences back then, even though what I was writing was more aggressive. Those same bands, Bauhaus and The Cure and Sisters of Mercy and Joy Division, and those were still influences, and I still listen to that kind of stuff all the time. And back then I was probably listening to more hardcore than I am now. I listened to hardcore for a long time, and eventually everyone's musical tastes change, and you move off something and start listening. But I'll always listen to hardcore, and I'll always listen to punk. So I wouldn't say that I'm completely different in my tastes now than I was then.
Okay. So if your taste hasn't changed that much in the last, I would say, 1 to 2 decades, what new artists are inspiring you right now?
Well, if you're talking about new artists that are directly inspiring me, I can't really say that probably that is happening.
Okay.
You know, I'm probably more inspired by things that I've always loved than new stuff. I appreciate new stuff, and I appreciate, I try to listen to new music, but as far as inspiration, I think it's probably stuff that has built up subconsciously with me over so many decades and has really become part of my DNA as a music lover and as a songwriter. I mean, that I think is the stuff that comes out in my songwriting.
Okay. Would you have any recommendations about new stuff that we might be losing? That's a hard one.
I get asked that question and I just blank on it. Let me see. I'm just trying to think if there's anything. I mean, like I really love Drab Majesty. That's a band that we took out on tour with us on our last record, and they're inspired by a lot of the same things we are. It comes out in a different way for them, but I think that a lot of really beautiful songwriting in that band, and they're really doing it well.
How about the chaos back then when you guys were into hardcore or punk rock? Do you miss it?
What part of the chaos?
Uh, let's say playing loud and messy concerts. Um, I guess there are different vibes. The shows you guys play now are, I would say, more under control, maybe.
It depends. I mean, we just got off the road 5 days ago. We were out for 6 weeks, and we still have like a lot of chaos on stage.
Okay.
Sometimes not intentional, but because we still play those old songs. We don't just play new stuff. So, like we play a single second. That's a hardcore song. And when we play that song, it's chaotic. We're not sitting there playing like jazz musicians with our guitars way up here, looking at our fingers, making sure we're playing it perfectly. We're still, we're 50 years old, but we're running around stage and it's chaotic and messy. And so it kind of sounds probably like it did 20, 30 years ago.
Okay. And speaking about the older stuff, which older song or album connects best with the new material life? Which one do they how do they match?
I'd say just as far as like a dark tone, maybe like a Black Sails or a Sing the Sorrow.
Okay.
And I can't really pinpoint why, but in my head, as being a guy who wrote the music on those records and wrote the music on this record, I feel there's some kind of kinship there.
Okay. So when you're building a set list, how do you make this word work? So I mean, you span so many eras. So how do they match and how do you work it?
I'm the guy that actually makes the set list every night. So
Okay.
I make it and then I send it to the rest of the band. and see, get their approval on it. But I put a lot of thought into set lists, and I spend a lot of time making sure it's tough because, like you say, we got a lot of records and they sound, you know, very disparate sounds and types of songs. And so you just have to look at dynamics and like what would fit well together. And sometimes putting a slow new song against an old fast song, right back to back, that actually works really well live, even though it seems like it would be like whiplash. That's actually something I think that the fans appreciate because, you don't want to hear too much of one thing.
Okay. And have you noticed a shift in the audience lately? I mean, did did, mm, did your audience change?
I mean, they've gotten older like us.
Okay.
Okay.
And
And
We still see young people at our audience, of course, but like I think it's more of a testament to the loyalty of our fans. It's not like they keep disappearing and new people come in. It's like people are now bringing their kids to see us, and so it's because they, I think, love AFI and they've been coming to see us for 20 years, and so it's kind of fulfilling to see that type of loyalty.
and how about the new fans that met you guys with this new material? How do they react with the, I don't know, answer that or Hollow AP music that you play live? How do they find this mix?
I think it depends on the person. I've definitely heard people be like that sort of discovered us on later records and go back and listen to the early ones and be like, I don't know, that sounds kind of, that sounds a little crazy. That's not really for me. Whereas the people that started listening to the band on, say, Shut Your Mouth and Open Your Eyes, they like that because it's kind of like, as a music fan myself, I like the stuff that I fell in love with. Like The Cure, they still make great records. Like their new record is amazing. But I started listening to The Cure when I was 11 years old. So those early records are always going to be my favorites. Even though the band has evolved and matured and moved on, I can't help it. Like whatever you fall in love with, that's always going to be your favorite.
That's great. I mean, you guys are visiting us pretty soon in Mexico. First time I saw you guys was in back in 2003 in Orlando, Florida, in one Vans Warped Tour during um, uh, this summer. And speaking of, you guys are going to play a lot of new stuff. I wanted to ask you as the last question: what's your favorite moment in this current live set that you guys have been playing lately?
It's hard because I make a point to really change the set list every night. Like it really there's ton. We played, I think, almost 90 different songs on this last
okay.
run. So you're not gonna hear the same set list over and over. But for new stuff, I really like playing Holy Visions and Marguerite. Those have been two, and No and Underground, really fun songs to play live. And then, there's stuff that just like we play Strength Through Wounding a lot, which is the first song of Black Sails. That's always fun. And, even Girls Not Grey, which we probably played every show for 20 years, it's just something that's always really fun to play that song. And it always gets a good reaction. And then, I throw like random old stuff in there that's always like we played a song called NyQuil, which is on the first AFI record. And Hunter and I had never played that with the band, and it hadn't probably been played in 25 years or more. And so, we're playing stuff like that with like dusting off stuff that hasn't been played for decades.
This might be a random question, but is the death of seasons in between those 90 songs that you told me about?
No, that's one. There are a small handful of songs that, Davey is like, he's had surgery on his throat twice,
Okay.
once in 2004 and once in 2007. And so there's a couple of songs that are very dangerous for him to perform. He can do them. He's still capable of doing it, but it's dangerous. And Death of Seasons is one of those.
Okay.
Try not to, even though I would love to play that song, I don't want to hurt him. So we try not to do ones that are dangerous.
I understand. Well, Jade, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure talking to you today. And I hope to see you guys in Mexico pretty soon in the Vive Latino show. Oh, Vive Latino, no, Corona, right?
Corona Capital.
Corona Capital. So it will be great seeing you guys again. I will wait to see Death of Seasons. But thank you very much for having me here and have a great day.
Thank you. You too. Thanks for the interview.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.